soft winter wind, distant church bell, quiet footsteps on snow. Before the sun rose over the village, before the chimneys began sending smoke into the pale morning sky, there was always one window already glowing. It belonged to a little bakery at the end of Willow Street. Above the door hung an old wooden sign, "The Morning Crust." And every morning, without exception, its owner arrived before sunrise. His name was Samuel. He was an old baker with silver hair, tired blue eyes, and hands that seemed to remember every piece of dough they had ever touched. At 4:30 in the morning, while the rest of the village slept beneath thick blankets, Samuel unlocked the bakery door. Click. He stepped inside. The bakery was dark and cold. Samuel hung a small lantern beside the door. Flicker. Golden light slowly spread across the room. He smiled. "Good morning," he whispered. There was no one there to answer, but Samuel always said it anyway. Samuel removed his coat and rolled up his sleeves. Then came the familiar ritual: flour, water, salt, yeast. His hands moved slowly and carefully. He kneaded the dough against the old wooden table. Thump, fold, thump, fold. Outside, snow gathered quietly on the rooftops. Inside, the bakery began to smell like something alive, something warm, something safe. Samuel shaped the first loaf and placed it gently inside the oven. The fire crackled. Crackle, crackle. He closed the heavy oven door. Then he waited. Samuel had baked bread for 42 years. And during those years, he had learned something important. Bread couldn't be hurried. Neither could people. At 5:15, Samuel looked through the window. The village was still asleep. No cars, no voices, no footsteps, only snow. Sometimes Samuel wondered why he continued opening so early. Most customers didn't arrive until 7. Some mornings, nobody came until 8. But Samuel always arrived before sunrise. There was a reason he had never told anyone, not even Clara, the young woman who had worked at the bakery for many years. She had asked him once, "Why do you always come so early?" Samuel smiled. "Someone has to make the first bread." "That doesn't answer my question." "No," he said, "it doesn't." And then he laughed. But Clara noticed something. Whenever she asked about those early mornings, Samuel's smile became a little quieter, as though the darkness before sunrise belonged to a memory he wasn't ready to share. One winter morning, Clara arrived unusually early. It was still dark. She pushed open the bakery door and froze. Samuel was sitting beside the oven. A cup of tea rested between his hands. The little lantern beside him was glowing. "You're here already?" Clara whispered. Samuel looked up. "I've been here for hours." Clara shook her head. "You're strange, Samuel. I've been told." She sat beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. The oven hummed softly. Snow tapped against the window. Then Clara noticed something on the counter. A small paper bag. Inside was one warm loaf of bread. "Who's that for?" Samuel looked at the bag. "Oh!" he smiled. "That one's not for sale." "Why?" Samuel looked toward the window. "Someone always needs breakfast." Clara waited. "Who?" Samuel said nothing. He simply looked out at the sleeping village. At 6:30, Samuel carried the warm loaf outside. Clara watched through the window. He walked down the snowy street, past the old fountain, past the closed flower shop, past the little library. Then he stopped beside a wooden bench. An old man sat there, wrapped in a brown coat. His hands trembled from the cold. Samuel placed the bread beside him. The old man looked up. "Again," Samuel nodded. "Again." "Thank you." Samuel gently patted his shoulder. Then he turned and walked back toward the bakery. Clara was waiting. "Who is he?" "His name is Thomas." "Does he live nearby?" Samuel paused. "Yes." "Where?" Samuel looked toward the snowy street. "Somewhere between yesterday and tomorrow." Clara stared at him. "You really are strange." Samuel laughed, but Clara couldn't help wondering what he meant. Years passed. The bakery became part of the village. People came for bread, but they also came for other things. A mother would arrive after a difficult night and sit quietly near the window. Samuel would give her tea. A tired teacher would come before school. Samuel would slip an extra roll into her bag. A widower would stop every Sunday morning. Samuel never asked questions. He simply gave him the bread. And sometimes that was enough, because Samuel understood something most people forgot. Not every sadness needed advice. Sometimes it only needed warmth. Sometimes people didn't need someone to tell them that everything would be all right. They simply needed somewhere safe to sit until they could believe it themselves. And somehow, the little bakery became that place. Then, one December morning, the snow came heavily. The wind shook the bakery windows. The roads disappeared beneath white drifts. Nobody came. Not one customer. Samuel looked around the empty shop. For the first time in 42 years, he wondered if he should simply close the bakery. He was tired. His knees hurt. His hands had become stiff, and the village was changing. People bought their bread from supermarkets now. Few remembered the old bakery. Samuel sighed. He turned off the oven. Then he noticed the lantern, still glowing. He smiled sadly. "Well," he whispered, "maybe tomorrow." He picked up his coat, and then, knock. Samuel froze. Someone was outside. He slowly walked toward the door. Knock. Again. Samuel opened it. A young woman stood in the snow. White flakes covered her coat and hair. Her cheeks were red from the cold. "Are you Samuel?" "Yes." "My grandmother told me about you." Samuel looked confused. "Who is your grandmother?" The woman smiled. "Clara." Samuel's expression changed. "Clara?" "Yes." She reached into her coat and pulled out an old photograph. Samuel took it with trembling hands. It showed the bakery many years ago. Samuel stood beside the oven, and beside him was Clara, young, smiling. Samuel stared at the photograph. "I haven't seen her in 20 years. The woman's smile faded. She passed away last winter. The bakery became completely silent. Only the fire continued to crackle. Samuel lowered his eyes. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "She never told me she was sick. She didn't want you to stop baking." Samuel looked up. The young woman reached into her coat again. "There is something else." She handed him an envelope. Samuel's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. He unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was unmistakable. He began to read. Samuel, if you're reading this, I suppose I was right. You probably still arrive before sunrise. You probably still light that silly lantern, and you probably still make too much bread. Samuel laughed quietly, but his eyes filled with tears. He continued, "Do you remember asking me why I came to work at the bakery? I never told you. My father had died. I was 23. I didn't know what to do with my life. I felt as though everyone else had somewhere to go, while I was standing still." Samuel stopped reading for a moment. The young woman stood silently nearby. He continued, "But every morning, when I walked into that bakery, you had already made bread. The oven was warm, the lantern was glowing, and somehow the smell of fresh bread made the world feel possible again." Samuel lowered the letter. A tear rolled slowly down his cheek. The young woman smiled through her own tears. She said the bakery saved her. Samuel shook his head. He looked toward the old oven. No. His voice was barely above a whisper. Brett did. He smiled sadly. Sometimes that's all people need. The next morning, Samuel arrived at 4:30. The village was sleeping. Snow covered the rooftops. The streets were empty. Samuel unlocked the bakery. Click. He lit the lantern. Flicker. Then he began making bread. Thump. Fold. Thump. Fold. For the first time in years, Samuel didn't feel alone. He thought about Clara, about Thomas, about the tired teachers, the lonely mothers, the widowers, the strangers who had entered the bakery, carrying sadness and left carrying something warm. And suddenly, Samuel understood. He had never really been baking bread for people. He had been baking mornings, small beginnings, tiny reasons to keep going. A warm loaf, a quiet chair, a cup of tea, a little light waiting in the darkness. Sometimes that was enough to help someone begin again. The first loaf came out of the oven. Golden, warm, perfect. Samuel placed it on the wooden counter. Outside, the darkness slowly began to change. The sky became gray, then blue, and at the very edge of the horizon, a thin line of gold appeared. Sunrise. Samuel stood by the window with his cup of tea. For a moment, he imagined Clara sitting beside him, young again, laughing. "You're still here?" Samuel smiled. "Yes, still waking up before everyone? Yes, still making too much bread." Samuel looked at the overflowing basket. "Yes," he laughed softly. "I suppose I am." And for just a moment, the bakery felt full of someone who was no longer there. Not in a sad way, in the way certain memories remain warm long after the people we love have gone. At 7 o'clock, the first customer arrived. Then another. Then another. The bakery slowly filled with warm voices. Boots stomped snow from the doorway. Someone ordered cinnamon rolls. Someone bought a loaf of rye. Someone simply stood near the oven because they liked the warmth. And above the door, the little lantern remained lit, even after the sun had risen. Because Samuel believed some lights weren't meant to replace the darkness. They were meant to remind us that morning would always come. Eventually, no matter how long the night had been. And so, if you ever find yourself awake before sunrise, when the world is quiet, when the windows are dark, and you feel as though everyone else has already found their place in life, remember Samuel. Remember the baker who woke before the sun. He never knew who would walk through his door. He never knew who needed a loaf of bread. He never knew whose heart was quietly breaking. But every morning, he came anyway. He lit the lantern. He warmed the oven. And he began again. Because sometimes a new beginning doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly as the smell of fresh bread, as a warm cup of tea, as a small light in a dark window, as someone simply saying, "Good morning." So tonight, let yourself rest. You don't have to solve everything. You don't have to know what tomorrow will bring. You don't have to have your whole life figured out before you close your eyes. Morning will come when it is ready. And when it does, there will be warm light waiting for you. Just like there was for Clara. Just like there was for Thomas. And just like there may be for you. So take a slow breath. Let your shoulders relax. Listen to the quiet. The night is not asking anything from you anymore. You have done enough for today. Tomorrow can wait. For now, There is only warmth, only quiet, only rest. And somewhere in a little bakery at the end of Willow Street, a lantern is still glowing, waiting patiently for morning. Good night,